you. I said this before. Joy is the only reality. All else is an illusion. Joy is a different name for consciousness, for love, for beauty. It's just another name. It's equivalent. You could put it in the same equation. You could say God is joy, and that would be a very accurate statement. But for you to experience that truth, for you to experience your true nature, which is joy, and it's different than happiness. Happiness is the type of, I mean, I know it's semantics at this point, but the happiness that all of us refer to when we talk, we say, I want to be happy or I'm happy, is conditional happiness, meaning here today, gone tomorrow. And it's very much dependent on the external world, dependent on your relationship status, dependent on your job status, dependent on anything that is external. That's the happiness most of us are familiar with, and that's why I say, although it's a semantics thing, but as far as what the mass consensus refers to as happiness, that's a different thing than joy. Joy is constant. Joy is okay? It is. The isness is joyful. It's very joyful. So, to experience your true nature, to experience that joy that I'm talking about, you've got to release the obstructions. And specifically, I'm talking about emotional obstructions that obstruct the energy flow in the mind-body complex. Okay? So that's childhood traumas, that's suppressed emotions, emotions of anger, emotions of resentment, emotions of sadness, because sadness, anger is the cover up for sadness. Okay, so it's anger is the most superficial, and then it's sadness. So if you release your anger often, you will experience sadness, you'll experience tears being released, and then all of that is obstructing the infinite flow of joy, of pure joy. And there are so many ways of releasing these obstructions, okay? So many ways. I mean, there is catharsis, which is basically screaming and yelling and just really going into an experience of psychosis, in other words, okay? And I've used that in a lot, actually. It really helped me to release a lot of the emotions. And there's also holotropic breathing / Wim Hof breathing. I've used that as well. And basically you do the breathing and it's sort of hyperventilating. They both are essentially hyperventilating, but differently. You know, there's different things. With the Wim Hof breathing, you've got to hold your breath. With the holotropic breathing, you just keep going. And I found that you have to go for quite some time into these states. I mean, there are like retreats, right? There's like, you know, group sessions, because you could be there for an hour, 2 hours breathing to get to those emotions, okay? To release them, to go past the gatekeeper, which is your conscious mind, into your subconscious and release those traumas. And sometimes people not only release trauma from childhood, they also release trauma from past lives. It isn't very common, but it's not uncommon at the same time. So there's so many methods. The worst method, in my opinion, by far, or not the worst, it's not the right word, the least effective method, in my opinion, is psychotherapy, is talking. Okay, that's, in my opinion, that's the least effective. because all you're doing is you're talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, talking about it, and then at some point, 5 years down the road, you figure out why, the why of it, but you still don't know how to release it. Okay, it's grasping something with your intellect, but not having the practical knowledge and wisdom to actually do something about it. And really, why your trauma happened, it doesn't matter. The reason, the analytical reasoning behind it, it's largely irrelevant. It is, if you're really curious, okay, and it's just that it's feeding more. I guess it's feeding the curiosity. Oh, that's why it happened. That's why, but it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. I read this little book that I have, the only book that I have in the Tao Te Ching. So I have two very small books. The one that I'm referring to is Who Am I by Ramana Maharshi, and it's essentially a process, technique, a method to help you get enlightened, essentially, because Ramana Maharshi was a self-realized being. And in the book, it's very, very small. It's like it's just a few pages. He says that most people, because it's sort of a series of questions and answers. Somebody that visited him asked him some questions, and he answers them. So he says the question is it necessary for someone to go back to their past and analyze it and know why things happened? And he said that's a waste of time. He says if you just actually do the work and just get on with it, that's much more effective. So why things happened, why you experience sadness every day, and why that's again, it's not that relevant. It's not gonna help you all that much. It just feeds it. It feeds it. The more you talk about it, the more you feed it, actually. A little bit of an analyzing here and there is okay, but the methods are there. The techniques are there for releasing trauma. These things are blocking. They're blocking. They're like, we don't have such a good example here, but imagine this river. This river is flowing. That's energy. Okay, let's think of it as energy. Now, if somebody built a dam over there, there's a bridge, not a dam. But let's suppose that little bridge is a dam. Then the water essentially stops flowing. The energy stops flowing. It's there. You could see that it's very much still flowing, So right now, there's a lot of energy flowing into your system, but there are dams built. Here's some pigs. Okay, so there are dams built in your psyche, in your subconscious, that are preventing the water, the energy, from flowing, which is the pure joy that I talked about in the beginning of the video. So I say get on with it, folks. I say do the actual practical work to release the demons so that you can experience your true self. Do the actual work, get practical with it. Find a support group if you feel like you can't do these practices of crying and releasing anger, etc., etc. Find a support system, or find yourself some isolated woods or something, and go there and invite the emotions out. You have to invite them out. You have to send them out an invitation. Okay, really, last time I cried, which I talked about in a video, it wasn't too long ago, it was back in Copenhagen, because I felt like the wound of separation from the original wound of separation from consciousness, and the pain of it. But I actually for a whole day or 2 days, I invited the emotions out. I said, I feel there's tears here that really need to be released. And I was inviting them out. I said, come here, I've got some tea for you. Do you want some sugar with it? I'll put you some mint, right? I was inviting the tears. I said, look, we're gonna have to do this. I feel you here, my face is tensed up. I gotta release you. And I did that for about 2 days, and then it was in the evening, it was nighttime, and I got the call, go to the jungle. I got the call. And on my way there, driving the bike, I was already tearing up. But I invited the emotions, and I know I have a safe space, which is the jungle in that case. And I know I could release the tears. And I experienced tremendous joy after. Tremendous joy. The next day, the next 2 days, 3 days. Tremendous joy. Absolutely tremendous joy. A sense of relief, a sense of, again, sense of self. True self. Again. So, yeah, release them. There's some of you guys might have like rivers of tears that may need to be released over several sessions. Think of them as sessions. They take like an hour. Sometimes you might just cry for an hour and scream for an hour. Who knows? And again, the reasoning doesn't matter. Your mom abused you, your dad abused you, you were abandoned, whatever it is. It's not that relevant. We've all been hurt somehow, one way or another, folks. You're not special for being traumatized. Nobody is. Okay, nobody is. Brad Blanton, the radical honesty guy, he's got a funny joke. He hosts these radical honesty retreats, and he's got this funny joke. He says, I could, after having so many people come to the retreats and stuff, I'm able to summarize to you the story of a human being in 25 seconds. I grew up, I was traumatized, I was abused, I suffered, and here I am. And it's true. It's like, you're not special for being traumatized. So don't dwell on it too much. Whatever happened, happened. Now that's just a memory at this point. Everything is in the now. You could release the information field that is dominating your now moment, because really you're wallowing on the memory, but it's all now. Past is now, future is now. The minute you remember it, it's happening now. It even causes an emotion in your body, which is in the here and the now. But you could, just like you go on the computer and delete some files and go to the trash can and say delete forever, you could exactly do the same thing with memories. Okay, you could absolutely do the same thing. I mean, we're no different than computers. We're just biocomputers. And the way to do that is release the emotion. Okay, give it a release. You could also go in your room, if you feel comfortable in your room. Maybe nobody's home, maybe you live alone, and you could go into a deep meditative state, hum for an hour or so, and in that state you could pretty much command yourself to do anything. So you could hum for an hour and put on maybe a blindfold or something so that you really go in, and then after about 40 minutes, an hour of humming, you could command yourself. You could say, okay, it is time to release the tears. It is time. I feel there's a lot of tears that are stored in my face and my body, a lot of sorrow, a lot of regrets, and I'm going to release them now. And believe me, if you really go deep into a meditative state, you can command yourself to do anything pretty much. Okay? And this is very important. After you release the emotions, it's probably gonna have to do with somebody, an ex of yours, a parent, a friend, something like that. After you release the emotions, send forgiving thoughts to that person. Because like Jesus said when he was being crucified, Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. And these people who were instruments for your trauma or for your sorrow or whatever it is, they themselves are traumatized, and that's why they're passing on the trauma to you. They actually need to do just the same work as you, the same release, the same stuff. Otherwise, they could not have possibly passed down this type of behavior, this type of vibration. So they themselves need to work on it. So send them forgiving thoughts. Send them forgiving thoughts. Send your parents forgiving thoughts. They themselves are traumatized. Okay, who isn't traumatized? Who is not traumatized, okay? It's just the way it is. It's the way of things. It's the way the game rolls, I guess. And you really want to go deep and send people forgiving thoughts. The people who hurt you, quote unquote, they didn't hurt you. You were just hurt by a series of actions that goes back many generations. Okay, who knows who started the hurting? Okay, nobody knows really. God probably started it with the moment of separation. Let there be light. You could say that's when it all began. The original wound, the original trauma is the trauma of being separated from source. So it actually, in many ways, you started it. God started it. So it doesn't matter. But trust me, your parents didn't traumatize you. They just passed on to you again what is the original wound of separation from source, a self-inflicted wound, so that the game can go on. And send those forgiving thoughts. You want to send the forgiving thoughts so much so you want to release those forgiving thoughts so much so puppies are always excited. They're like exploring everything. Hey, hey. Hey, hey, little fella. Okay, so you want to forgive somebody so much that if you meet them in person, you harbor no negative feelings towards them. You don't feel any negative feelings for them in your body. If you were to meet them in person, like for example, I held a lot of resentment towards my dad growing up because he beat the shit out of me. Okay, I mean, I can't tell you. Anyway, I held a lot of resentment. And I had to really, really work hard at this. Really work hard. Many years it took. And now, not only when I see him, I don't have any negative feelings for him. I have only love for him. I have only respect. I have only honor. It's true. So, at least if you want to know if you've forgiven somebody, the sign is that if you were to meet them in person, what kind of emotion would you feel in your body? How would you feel? What's the emotional response in your body? If there's any feeling of anxiety, any feeling of contraction, keep working at it. Keep working at it. Okay? So, thank you to all the Patreons for the support. And if you would like to join the family, there's a link for Patreon in the description. There's also a link for one-time payments, donations, so you could make a one-time payment, okay, via PayPal. I want to thank all the people who made generous donations, one-time donations. I really appreciate you guys. So the links are in the description. And until next time, may the force be with you.